In the twilight realm between dreams and reality, 3 stories emerge, each creepier than the last. A girl's spectral presence transcends the boundary between life and death with a haunting whisper that echoes through the corridors of a dream-turned nightmare. Then, in a house steeped in familial warmth, the chilling laughter of unseen children weaves through the air, an unnerving soundtrack to a nightmarish revelation. The laughter crescendos, morphing into a cacophony that defies explanation. As the protagonist attempts to escape the clutches of the supernatural torment, unseen hands manifest, thwarting any retreat. Lastly, within the desolate confines of a Wisconsin home, the mundane collides with the inexplicable. A peculiar crawl space, a portal between siblings' bedrooms, conceals more than mere mysteries. Whimpers in the night lead to the discovery of the door ajar, revealing a presence that falls just outside the boundaries of logic. We'll see you on the inside. Folks, welcome back to Sleep with the Lights On. We are once again here to share 3 increasingly creepy stories with you. And we actually got it's a pretty interesting episode, I will say myself. This is, usually we kind of theme things a little bit. And I didn't see a theme in these stories, but as I was putting them together, I'm like, these just fit, man. They just feel good in a bad way. Or they feel bad in a good way. Maybe I should clarify that.
I ain't scared.
Well, that is usually the case. I mean, been doing this for how long now? How do you start these damn episodes, You're just like, hey, you weren't here a second ago. Now you're here. Scary story. And that's kind of what we do. You may notice that there's not a wide angle shot this episode, and that is because life is chaos, and sometimes people don't remember to charge batteries. Christian, I know it was you. Just kidding. That was me. I did completely spaced on it, and that's fine. So you don't get to see my shoes this episode. I hope you'll recover from this torment or tragedy. And they're slippers and sweatpants as usual, so you're not really missing much. Leave it up to your imagination. Christian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Tired and cold, but well.
Tired and uninspired.
I wouldn't say that.
I would.
But it's definitely cold.
Yeah, it's been, negative 30-ish, 35, 40.
It was 38 on the way over, negative 38.
Yeah, I was outside and I felt it. And then I opened my app, it's like negative 10. I'm like, No, sir, I know what negative 10 feels like. This is way less. But you're not here to listen to how cold it gets in Alaska. I'm sure you're familiar. You've seen the stories. You've read the stories. You've seen the videos. You've heard the news. What we should do is open up this. Let's open up this episode. Let's get going. I should clarify, we're recording in the morning. We don't usually record in the morning. So if things seem a little sluggish, it's because of that. I got mulled coffee. Christian's got something in a black thermos over there. Nobody's familiar. Might be chicken noodle soup. Might be his favorite thing in the world.
Coffee?
The Drugas. But that's regardless. We're not here for that. Let's get into this first story, shall we? And it's called Shhh.
It.
Wow. And it's by Cosmic Farce. Over there. Let's get that going. Okay. Not great for continuity, but that's fine, Scott, honestly, as long as you can read. I can read. So many people that aren't familiar with our podcast are probably, they think I have like Tourette's or something like that, because I'm over here quoting random sentences. Is my boyfriend a demon? And they're like, wow, this guy is really on the verge of losing it all. And that's fine. Anyway, from Cosmic Farce. A girl I knew for a few years and was very good friends with passed away in a car accident. A few days later, I have a dream that she's standing in the center of the road and I'm barreling towards her. I run into her, but then she appears in the seat beside me. She forces my head toward her abdomen. Where her stomach would be, there's a large mouth. The teeth are made of broken glass and sharp metal. She keeps saying, shh, shh. I wake up from the dream and I'm still hearing the shush. I look at the foot of my bed and she's standing in my room. She walks through my door and into the hallway. I follow her. She walks down the hallway and vanishes through the front door of the house. I didn't realize it at the time, but my dad was on the couch. He asked me if I was okay and asked if the flickering lights are what woke me up. He didn't see her, and I never noticed the lights flickering. That's kind of spooky. We've got some dream walking action going on here.
So, but when he saw her at the end of the bed, he woke up. Was awake though, right?
He or she, whoever it was.
Okay.
Yeah, he woke up from the dream after seeing the stomach teeth or whatever. And then he still hears the shushing noise, looks up and sees her standing at the foot of the bed. She leaves the room, goes down the hallway, follows, and she walks out the front door. And so that's when the person telling the story sees their dad on the couch. And the dad's like, oh, was it the flickering lights that woke you up? And this person's like, I never saw flickering lights, but my dad never saw my friend's ghost.
Yeah.
So it's kind of creepy. I don't know. I mean, first of all, there's not too many people that actually follow ghosts. You know what I mean? Like, you'll be in your, if you see someone walk by the door, most people are going to be like, I'm going to just kick it here. It's going to be fine.
Under the covers.
Yeah, that's the safe place, you know, but this person was actually like, nah, that's my friend. I'm going to see where this person's going. But that is kind of a weird dream to have about your friend.
Why glass teeth?
Yeah.
Maybe that was the metal from the car accident.
Yeah, like, but you're barreling toward, is that like you're witnessing their final moments? Is that, you know,
Yeah.
the stomach thing is really weird, unless there's like shards of glass that were
Yeah, it said glass and metal teeth.
sharp metal. Yeah.
That is,
It's creepy, man. I mean, what's the point of that though? You know, even if you're this person's good friend, you're dead from being hit by a car, apparently. Why would you show up to your friend like that? As like just, and there's no words spoken, just shh. You know, it just seems unnecessary.
that does. I don't understand. Like in any of these kind of stories, when a ghost appears, it's really hard to understand why in a lot of cases.
Yeah, the logic behind it is, so, and just the whole, like, honestly, the whole scene. You know, you see it at the end of the bed. They walk down the hallway, walk out the front door. You're like, okay, you didn't even want to say hello or anything. You weren't going to be like, hey, what's up? I'm okay. I'll watch over you from afar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just wanted to show off the new abs, I guess.
Yeah, check out my glass stomach teeth. Isn't that nice? Oh, beautiful. Thank you for that.
Stick your face a little closer.
Wow. Yeah, that is. That's a nice little short one, but that one got me for sure when I was reading. I'm like, ugh, gross.
That is pretty gross, but also frustrating because there's no rhyme or reason behind it. Was there a message that was supposed to be sent?
If there was, I don't think anyone received it.
Was that like the last breath of air, maybe, instead of
the old death rattle?
Yeah.
Or just like, hey, don't tell anyone this is what happened. Shh. You're like,
Yeah,
but why? Everyone knows.
Don't post this on Reddit. Shh.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-oh. Now we come back for a haunting. That's how it always happens. Mold coffee break.
Regular coffee break.
Where is that? Where is it coming from? Damn it.
What?
Where is it coming from? I looked at it. I was like, there's no mold in here.
I don't know what to tell you, man.
Why is my coffee a demon?
I can tell you that if you just, right when you're done drinking it, rinse it out with water.
That's how I started. You know?
And then dry it. Don't let it sit for 2 days.
This is not the mystery that I thought we'd be unsolving. That actually makes a lot more sense for this show than what we actually do. But beside the point, let's get into this next story, which is called Crying and Laughing.
I do that.
Yeah, a memoir by Scott Walker. No, by Cheryl Ann. And we begin. This happened about 8 or so years ago around Thanksgiving at my grandma's house. Everyone was asleep except for me. The only people in the house were my grandparents, my mom, my brother and I, and no one else. I was on the computer because I couldn't sleep. I turned on a small TV to watch Adult Swim while I browsed the internet. At around 4:30, I started getting a chill up my spine and I heard some children laugh. Distinctly the voices of a little girl and a boy. I know I'm all by myself, as far as being awake, so I turned to look at the TV and it was in the middle of a Inuyasha fight scene, so there's no way the laughter was coming from that. I checked the computer sound settings and I had every possible output muted, so it wasn't that either. I sat there confused for a few moments while the giggles of the two children were playing in the background. I figured maybe the radio in the kitchen was on. It was digital, so maybe it just came on for some reason, or it had a timer. I got up, and I kid you not, as I was walking to the door, with each step, the laughter grew louder. From giggling to guffaws to hard laughter. Once the guffaws started, why do I picture Goofy every time I hear the word guffaw?
Probably because you've been watching a lot of Mickey.
I'm like, is that technically a guffaw? I don't know.
Maybe he guffaws sometimes.
Yeah, well. Once the guffaws started, I started to hear a baby cry as well. What's going through my mind now is, what the fuck kind of radio show is this? And I just took 3 steps, nowhere near the door. I took a few more steps and the laughter turned hysterical, if not maniacal. The baby's cries turned to screams and wails as if it were in pain. I was trembling and terrified with each step I took to the doorway. But my mind was on autopilot. I needed to get out of there and across the hall to my mom, who surely would help me and notice the weird sounds too. The last couple of steps increased the laughter and crying to an almost deafening decibel. It was like I was at a concert and the speakers were directly in my ears, blasting noise. It was painful and scared the shit out of me. I took all the courage I had, and as soon as I reached the doorway, I was going to sprint. I started to run, but then something shoved me. I felt these hands at my chest push me back into the room with enough force to throw me off balance. The crying and laughter stopped as soon as I was back in the room. This all happened within 20 to 30 seconds, but it felt like 10 minutes. I was so scared I cried and slept in the tiny armchair before my grandma came in the room and made me sleep in her bed downstairs. Weird. You don't hear too many of those, like disembodied laughter that just gets louder and louder as you're like approaching it. And you get pushed by some invisible demon boy, like, get the hell out of here, boy.
Auditory hallucinations are pretty convincing, I think. I don't know how to explain the push.
Well, that would be a physical hallucination, Christian, if we're following your logic. But luckily, that's not what we do here. We find the real answers to these stories. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
I would like you to tell me what the real answer to this is.
Oof. I mean, I would like to know the real answer to this. I just know in my heart of hearts it's not some auditory hallucination.
How do you know that?
Because it was followed up by something physical.
It was followed up by something this person thought was or felt was physical.
Okay, Christian. Well,
it could still be all in their mind. It could be a ghost.
It could be all in their mind. It could be a ghost. Well, those are the two options, yeah. But on this show in particular, we focus more on the paranormal and not so much the in your mind.
That's what you do. That is what I do. I focused on in your mind and
well,
having just mental. I don't know if you call them mental hallucinations, but
aren't all hallucinations mental?
Yeah, that's right. But it's early, man. I don't know what to say about this one. This one
it's creepy.
There's no rhyme or reason why. First off, why would whatever's going on mix laughter with a baby crying? It almost feels like somebody's sitting outside with sound waves. Like some government entity is pushing these sounds and stuff into the house.
This kid needs to get to sleep.
If we send these two different sounds in, we'll be able to manipulate their mind and control them in the future, and they will be great consumers.
I like that your argument usually starts off with, this is all BS. This didn't happen. It was all in their mind. And what it likely was. And then you go in to create something that is so far away from not only the likeliness of it being paranormal in nature, but like to an extent where you're like, how you could think that over just like there's a weird ghost in the house, beyond me. But
I would say that something I believe is called Havana syndrome makes me say that scenario might be plausible. Not very likely though, but the Havana syndrome, from my understanding, is basically some government group or sponsored group was able to point something at like the U.S. Embassy, then create, I believe, sound waves that made people sick inside.
Yes.
So if you can do that,
then you can do it to a child on the internet at 4 a.m. for no reason.
which sounds like the beginning of a great X-Files episode.
Not one that I would watch, but I can see where you'd get that for sure. Interesting all the same. What do you guys think? How about you sound off in the comments? Give me an explanation for this that isn't as absolutely batshit ridiculous as my co-host over here seems to believe in his heart of hearts. And I can see on my screen that your daughter is texting me, which is never a good sign. And it's usually, can you come in here? Is there any pouches? No. The end. No, there's no pouches. What do you want me to do? You know? Interrupt my spooky ghost show? Talk about pouches? I'm not going to do that. You folks let us know what you thought of that story. If you have an explanation that we don't, that checks out, honestly, if you think about it. So, with all that being said, let's dive into this final story. It is called The Crawlspace Door. Spooky.
Bad news already.
Already the worst. Yeah, we've talked many a time about crawl spaces on this show. Not a fan. And this is by Loose Seals. Not sure if that's an Arrested Development reference or what, but it seems like it would be.
Or a bad day for all the handlers at SeaWorld.
Anywho, I say I personally do not believe in the paranormal, classic, but some of the experiences I had at my dad's house as a teenager sometimes makes me think otherwise. My whole family experienced plenty of strange happenings at this place, but the most jarring occurred when I was 17 years old. I rarely visited my dad's, but whenever I did make that hour-long trip into the nothingness of Wisconsin, I was always uneasy of what I might see or hear that night. The house had some very unique features that always struck me as strange, the most notable being a small crawl space in my bedroom that connected to my sister's bedroom adjacent to mine. Both sides of the crawl space were fitted with a small door. We never really knew what the purpose of the tunnel was, as it was far too small to use for storage and even too cramped for a grown adult to comfortably navigate. Anyway, this particular night, when I went to bed, I heard some very strange noises, almost like a faint whimper or crying. I didn't think much of this because it wasn't uncommon for coyotes to come by the house at night looking to prey on our poor barn cats. The night went on and the noises came and went. Struggling to sleep, I went downstairs to grab a glass of water from the kitchen. When I came back into my room, I noticed that the door to the crawl space was now ajar, and the whimpering had stopped. More than a little startled at this point, I quickly got back into bed and tried my best to fall asleep. Eventually, I was able to fall back asleep, but was later awakened when I felt a sinking feeling at the foot of my bed. I assumed that I must have left my bedroom door cracked, and one of the house cats had climbed on my bed. I closed my eyes and tried to fall back asleep and was forced awake by the sound of a slamming door. I opened my eyes and noticed that the door to the crawl space had been slammed shut. Then I quickly glanced at the foot of my bed and saw the outline of a large figure staring at me from the end of my bed. The figure was all black with bright white eyes. I got out of my bed as fast as I could and I ran downstairs. I spent the rest of the night awake on the couch. I still don't know what I saw or if it was even real. I was ready to chalk it up to sleep paralysis, but my sister told me the next morning that she also was woken up by the sound of the crawlspace door slamming. That was one of the last times I spent the night there. And if that wasn't bad enough, 5 years later, my dad and stepmom decided to add an extension to the house, and when they were digging the foundation for the extension, they uncovered gravestones from the 1800s.
Oops.
No thank you. Wow. I mean, crawlspace doors on their own already creepy enough for me, but this whole scenario playing out is a bit much. So it's a little too much for me.
Never build your house over a graveyard. We've talked about it. Everybody else has talked about it. Movies have talked about it.
Yeah.
But how do you know when the developers cover it up?
Exactly. And that's the main thing. Like, there's no way for you to know unless you go digging. You know, so maybe if you have a bunch of crazy stuff happening, maybe your house is just placed somewhere where it shouldn't be. You know, there's been plenty of, I forget which one, we should actually look into it, but there's like hot spots in the country that are like portal zones almost too, where like things just come in and out. And
Stephen King jokes about, or he doesn't even joke about it, he references it in some of his books. He says there's a place up by where he lived in Maine.
Yeah, that would check out. Yeah, one of them was in a forest somewhere, and I think it was like a government thing. Like the people who owned it had the property bought off them by the government because they wanted to do experiments in that area. And they gave some like weird excuse, like, oh, actually, we're doing this, blah, blah, something, whatever. We're buying your house. But the people that lived there before were like, yeah, literally, there's something weird going on in the attic. And it's not just a ghost. Yeah. So maybe, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of weird explanations for that stuff. The crawl space doesn't really make too much sense. An adult can't fit in there. Not a lot of storage space. Unless there's like a fun little thing for like kids or whatever, like, oh, we made a tunnel for our children to go to each other's room. But
I can think of
some more sinister reasons for sure.
Right. I don't know, man. The whole graveyard being under the house is like when you think of a place like bigger cities, like New York, and that's just talking here, Chicago, some old cities in the United States where they may have had graveyards in certain areas and certain greedy people just bulldozed the headstones and built over
it would look great right here? My house.
Yeah.
My house right here. Fuck these headstones. Get these out of here.
Which sounds like the whole premise for the original Poltergeist.
Little bit. Yeah.
So how many of us live over burials?
I do think, or just even like weird ground, like stuff like, tainted almost. It doesn't have to be burial sites or anything like that. Like just energy zones that, I mean, who's to say, really? It really is like a luck of the draw thing. We're like, we're buying this new house. Hopefully nothing weird happens here,
I mean, isn't that always the case when you buy a new house? You're like, what am I getting into? What comes with the house that they didn't put in fine print?
Exactly. We loved this house when we first got it. And then within like a month or two of being here, we learned all about a weird love triangle and murder and all that stuff. And we're like, oh, cool. Super great. Luckily it didn't happen in this house, but between neighbors and whatnot, I don't know. Some weird things have happened here as well. Who's to say?
Love triangles, man.
It gets them every time, honestly. There's like one thing that almost assuredly always ends with death, and that is love triangles.
I don't understand it because I don't think I get to that point ever. Yeah. But man.
They're just like, oh, whatever.
Love triangles might create ghosts, though.
That they do. That they do.
We should. Too bad there's not a way to find like stories based on love triangles that have paranormal activity in it. That'd be a pretty good search, but it'd be fascinating.
That would, be a very time-consuming search, unless you go to the library or something and be like, is there any information on... And they're like, will you get out of here, please? We don't do that here. That's getting way off topic. What do you think? Do you have any final thoughts on this story, the last one?
It's definitely a shadow person.
With piercing white eyes.
Yeah, which, if you're imagining or if you're hallucinating shadow people...
Almost prefer imagining.
It's hard to, it's such a common figure when you're near sleep.
Is it though? Like, I'm sure we've heard lots of stories of shadow people. That happens all the time. In this genre that we do, shadow people are very common. Yeah. But you go to like random folks on the street and be like, do you know what a shadow person is? They're like, what?
They might
get away from me.
A few of them might know now more than in the past because of social media, but
possibly, yeah.
What'd be funny is if we had a time machine to go back in time and ask questions like that to people in like the 70s and 60s and see what kind of answers we get. If people were more skeptical then, or...
It's hard to say, really.
They might have tried to cover it up and like, oh, no big deal. This is fine.
This person alone was even like, I'm skeptical, which happens like 9 out of every 10 stories. I'm like, I used to not believe, and then I started believing. Like, yeah, that's kind of the way it works. That's the process.
Is that how it works?
That is, yeah. Well, you don't just grow up believing in stupid stuff, right? You don't grow up believing that ghosts exist or anything like that. Most of the time, it's you have an experience of your own. You're like, oh, I guess this is a real thing, And then you tell people, and they're like, no, that's stupid stuff, and you shouldn't believe in it. And here we are. So,
but a lot of people believe in it. Maybe it's not as stupid as some people say.
Really do be like that, yeah. But I mean, that's who cares what we think, honestly. What do you guys think of the land of YouTube? And or wherever you're listening this, which I imagine is only on YouTube. So comment below, let us know what your favorite story was. If you have any explanations that you think could kind of wrap up a couple of these stories, feel free to share them below. Share the show with your friends and family. Find us on social media at Freaky Deaky Pod, wherever you're at, except for TikTok, in which case it's at TFT Paranormal.
Like and subscribe to everything, please.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming.
And thank you for coming, yes. And we hope to see you again in 2 weeks when, and actually I should clarify, we are no longer doing bonus stories the following day after Sleep with the Lights On drops, mainly because the bonus stories do not get a lot of love yet. And it's something that I'll probably wait until the show grows a lot more, because right now I'm doing about twice as much work for about 12 to 15 views. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck all that. So
I don't know. Yesterday's bonus story seemed to do good.
we didn't have a bonus story yesterday. That was Sleep with the Lights On.
That is correct.
That is correct.
Yesterday was a rough day because I had car problems because of the cold. So I don't really
That's true.
understand yesterday. It sucked.
Christian doesn't really understand yesterday, but something with hallucinations and imaginations, I'm sure. With that being said, folks, we will see you right back here next time for Volume 12, which has some, well, I'll just save it for you. You're going to enjoy it, trust me. In the meantime, be sure to sleep with the lights on, because you never know what is lurking
In the shadows.
in the shadow. Holy crap, wow, he did it.
I've been practicing.
He's been, just standing in front of the mirror at home. In the shadows. What's lurking in the shadows, Scott? Scott, there's things lurking in the shadows.
And then something answered me.
Well, there you have it. Goodbye.
Be scared